As Segun told you, my topic for tonight is leadership, education, and reparations, repairing and reconstructing community. If we are to honor and carry out our sacred mission of bringing good into the world, given to us in the Odu Ifa, if we are to, in fact, honor and carry out this mission, which requires our expanding the realm of human freedom and justice in the world, then nothing is more important than that we repair and construct our own community. To talk of the need to repair and reconstruct our community is not to engage in a discussion of pathology, which you know I reject.
Yes.
It is rather a question of problem solving, of struggling to make ourselves stronger. And as Cabral says, that is what struggle is about, turning our weakness into strength. It is about clearing space in the world so that we can live and love freely, so that we can push our lives forward, and with other freedom-loving and progressive people, initiate with Fanon a new history of humankind. What we are seeking is to pose a new model of how humans ought to live and how they ought to relate to each other. But we cannot do that if we are not capable of saving ourselves. If we're not capable of healing ourselves and beginning to speak a new truth about ourselves, not about our pathology, but about our possibility. Not about what we didn't do, but what we did do and how that can be used to do even more. I want a group of people that appreciates black history as one of the most rich and resourceful places we can turn in order to get both information and inspiration to build the kind of world we all want and deserve to live in. In order for us to wage this struggle, we must focus at this time, at this critical juncture, on at least three basic things. There are certainly other things, but I just want to talk about leadership, education, and reparation. The question of the crisis of leadership is clearly a major issue of our time. First, we have the problem of definition. What is it to be a leader?
Yes.
Usually that is assumed by media visibility. If you appear enough, people will assume you're a leader. Now the problem with that is clear, is that it's an externally motivated thing. And second, it even gets good leaders, reducing the practice of leadership to PR. So the question is not how you engage the masses, but how you engage the screen. Think about it now. How many people are actually doing work in the black community? Many people maybe even be afraid or maybe think it's a hopeless cause. And of course they got different technological ways to explain it. I can reach more people.
Yes. 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 That's right. That's what they say.
In 3 minutes commercial on TV than I can a whole year working in the community. But when you reach them, how does it affect them? What do you think is more effective to you? Somebody knocking on your door and talking to you or meeting you at the African Portrait Theater, or somebody talking to you from ABC, CBS, CNN for a couple of seconds that the European chose cut out and diminished in value anyhow.
That's right. That's what he does.
See? It's all right to get on TV after you've done something. Think about it now. It's good to be on TV after you've done something. It's just like, oh yeah, I know them.
Yeah.
What do you know them for doing though? And so what we have to do is have a clear definition of what leadership. We say in us organization that leadership is a self-conscious capacity and will to provide philosophy, principles, and program which inspires and informs a practice that not only satisfies human needs, but transforms the people in the process, making them self-conscious agents of their own life and liberation. Now, I know that's long, so I'm going to go right over it. The first thing I said about leadership is that it is what? A self-conscious capacity and will. Even when people have a capacity, like a knowledge capacity, even a technological capacity, they might not have the will. They might not see that as important. Do you understand? But they also must be able to have a definitive capacity to do what? To evolve or produce first a philosophy, then a set of principles, then a program. And what is this philosophy, program, and set of principles designed to do? To inspire and inform a practice. You see, a lot of times people have directional leadership. They may just tell you to do something. It's not a practice, it's just an act. And therefore, sometimes your acts are disconnected. A practice I'm talking about as a coherent set of acts, including thinking. With a meaningful purpose. You see? So I'm wanting this philosophy, these set of principles, this program to inspire and inform a practice that has two main aims. One, to satisfy human needs, and second, to transform the people in the process, making them self-conscious agents of their own life and liberation. It is to empower our people so that each one walks in the world with a new sense of dignity and identity, direction, and purpose. Do you hear that? A new sense of dignity. A new sense of identity. Who am I, black man and woman? If a philosophy don't tell you that and doesn't tell you an expansive term, it's not a philosophy at all. It's a casual conversation that you could have or not. It's not going to change your life. You must be told things that transform you, that make you act even when you think you're tired.
Right.
And that makes you see possibility even in the midst of the catechism of impossibility that the dominant society teaches every day. What is this philosophy? A philosophy is a coherent system of views and values that gives us a moral, see that first, moral, material, that's concrete, right on the ground, and meaningful interpretation of life. And that at the same time demands a corresponding practice. A coherent system. Like sometimes people hit and miss. They say something right, next time they're wrong, way off. Because it's not coherent. They don't think systematically. And they often listen to the popular winds. What are the popular things saying? I was telling somebody, I was doing some counseling the other day about parents, and I was saying to them, you know what, comrade, you can't be a parent and a friend too to your child.
Sorry.
And you can't adopt your child's language and talk teenage rap talk and expect to be taken seriously. The people that are getting ready to send your sons and daughters to be killed in the desert, they don't talk teenage talk. See, they don't emulate their children. They insist that their children emulate them.
That's right.
Even though it's a crude thing they ask them to do.
Tell it.
And so if we are really going to take ourselves seriously, we as adults must in fact talk like adults, walk like adults, dress like adults, and imagine a future for our children like adults. And stop talking about it's somebody else's time and you ain't even dead.
That's a good point.
It's somebody else's time when you finish. I don't concede until I'm gone. You can do this after I'm gone. I'm going to do it as I can. hand.
That's right.
That's right.
We need a coherent philosophy, right? That requires a corresponding practice. Amilcar Cabral says one of the greatest weaknesses of the liberation struggle is a lack of ideology. And he said whereas the struggle can have an ideology and philosophy and still fail, we have never seen a successful revolution or struggle without one.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the word, if the beginning is not the word, then confusion is the beginning.
Ah,
You see it, don't you?
yes.
It's a word that gives you the vision. Leadership then begins with the word, a clear and correct vision of the world, and the central problems and possibilities in the world. Again, leadership begins with the word, a clear and correct vision of the world, and the central problems and possibility in the world. Our organization thus has put forth Kawaida, a communitarian African philosophy, as this vision of the world. Created in 1960s, it informed the conceptualization and practice of Kwanzaa and the Nguzo Saba. It informed the Black Power movement, the Black Studies movement, the Black Arts movement, the Black United Front and Convention movement, the Independent School movement, the Afrocentric movement, the Ancient Egyptian Studies movement, the Million-Person March movements. And it now seeks to make a definitive and important contribution to the reparations movement. Kawaida's strength lies essentially first in its grounding in African culture, continental and diaspora, ancient and modern. Second, in its bringing forth always the best of what it means to be African and human in the fullest sense. See, a lot of times people just say anything is African. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
Oh, you know the Africans do this. Where you hear this from, bro? What system is this in? You got to ask your people that. You can't just let people tell you anything is African. You got to have some proof of it. Don't you need proof? So don't try to fly away when you need to stay on the ground. There'll be time for that. The Oduifa tells us this, and I always like this. This is beautiful. And I think they wrote this for us. They said there will come a time when people will move through the air like birds. But not yet, black people.
Not yet.
See? Not yet, you know? There will come a time. And all the black people sitting there that like to meditate and imagine they can just, you know what I mean? There will come a time you can do that. But you have to clear the world so you can sit down in peace. So you can meditate in peace. So you won't be interrupted by a cowboy calling for your sons and daughters to kill people they don't even know and don't have a grudge against. Just for some personal and collective disorder they're suffering.
There it is. There it is.
They got the problem, not us.
That's right.
That's what we told them in Vietnam. And your sons and daughters are going to have to tell them that with regard to Iraq. And you have to get them ready for that. Not, oh son, it's your choice. You make up your mind. No, you got to wrestle with your son and your daughter. And do it in a principled way. That's what makes black people sometimes so afraid of their own children. They won't struggle gently with them. We've got to struggle. In the sacred text, people struggle with God.
Yeah.
Did you hear what I said?
Say it again.
In the sacred text, the people struggle with God. Why is this going on, God? What's happening? Ramses at the Battle of Kadesh says to Ra, hey, why are you leaving me out here by myself? You see, haven't I practiced what I'm supposed to do? Haven't I honored you? Why leave me out here? What do you care for these other barbarians? People do that all the time. But if we just sit on, go on son, go on daughter, it's up to you. They don't have it yet. They need, you know how they get strong? By struggling with you, to identify themselves, to understand themselves, to borrow from you and then add something to what you've given them. So that makes them part you, part them. When your daughters and sons are totally different from you, you failed. I said when your daughters and sons are totally different from you, you fail. They can't be just like you. That would be a problem. That's cloning. African people ain't into that. But they must reflect the best of what you've taught them. Otherwise, something's missing. Second, we were talking about Kawaida. First is grounding in African culture. Second is bringing forth the best of what it means to be African and human. And third, it's insistent that we dialogue constantly with African culture. Fourth is creation of Afrocentric dialogue around the critical issues that affect us. And five, it's practice of struggle, service, and institution building since the 60s. In fact, this month is our 37th year. And so we come, black people, we come here to this podium with some knowledge, some experience, and some understanding of leadership. Leadership is also, as I said, about principles. We constantly argue that no principles have united African people throughout the world African community like the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles of Kawaida. Not only do over 28 million Africans around the world raise these principles up as a fundamental focus and value system during the week of Kwanzaa, but also they serve as fundamental cultural grounding and value orientation for numerous kinds of groups throughout the world African community. Independent schools, rites of passage program, black student unions, economic cooperative, political caucuses, religious groups, community organization, youth groups, study groups, etc. They all borrow from, build on, and see the Nguzo Saba as their fundamental value system and grounding. The Nguzo Saba were also included in the Million Man March Day of Absence mission statement because they were embraced by the groups that formed the National Organizing Committee of the Million Man March Day of Absence as the common culture and value grounding on which we all stood and stand. So clearly, we must reaffirm the importance and value of the 7 principles, the Nguzo Saba, in all that we do. And we must make them a part of the daily way we and our children walk and relate in the community and in the world. That's right. Central to the leadership is also program and practice that not only satisfies human need, but transform the people in the process. This calls for an attention to education. The leaders just can't be sharp, the people must be sharp.
Now.
The leadership can't just know, the people must know. In fact, the ancient Egyptians put so much emphasis on knowledge, they called human beings knowing beings, rekid, those who know. Now, I've always said this, just think about that. To call a person rekid is not only to indicate how important knowledge is to understanding ourselves, it is also to point to how important knowledge is in realizing our most expansive self. If you don't have knowledge, black people, all kinds of things happen. First of all, you're most likely going to be afraid of the world and afraid of the oppressor when you don't even have no reason to be. The next thing you're going to do is make a lot of mistakes you don't need to make. And if you knew, you wouldn't make those mistakes.
True.
Another thing is, you'll be vulnerable to the white man's interpretation of who you are now and who you are in history. That means he's going to undermine your identity, therefore your purpose and your direction.
That's right.
If he has a monopoly on who you are and can actually impose his definition of what it means to be African in the world, The best you can do is buck dance and hope that you can get a little money while you're doing it. And pray that you can be useful long enough where you can live comfortably in your old deformed life. I know that sounds rough, but I mean, what else could I say? You know what I mean? See, we have to watch letting the European deform us. Mentally deform us. Culturally deform us. Where we dance to our own degradation, sing song to humiliate our mothers and fathers, our sisters and our brothers. And again, dance to our own degradation. That's rough, ain't it? And again, as I tell my classes, I don't blame black people totally for this. You know who I blame for it.
That's right.
One of the things I mentioned, and I studied the Messenger a long time. One of the things that always sticks in my mind is a speech he made in Phoenix, Arizona in the 60s. And he said the white man is guilty of everything we are except righteous.
Now.
If the white man is too hard for y'all because it looks like a biological interpretation, let's say the system he set up. You can have that if you want. We're looking for new ways. This system of oppression is guilty for everything you are,
That's right.
except strong and righteous and beautiful. All the good you have, you've carved it out of the hard rock of the reality that he has dropped on you. He dropped a rock on you. You know what Malcolm said? You didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on you. We're not just between a rock and a hard place. A rock has landed on us. The heavy rock of the Holocaust of enslavement, where there is a system that seeks to not only deculturalize us, that is, strip us of our language, our way of relating and walking in the world, but they also sought to dehumanize us so that we don't even identify ourselves in fully human ways. We call ourselves the N-word.
Oh, it's horrible.
And try to make it like a homey word. What people would allow their sons and daughters to call themselves dogs and the sound of dogs? Bow wow. What kind of stuff is that? And nobody really challenges that in a serious and indignant way. Well, I think we should just talk with them. I mean, I can see their point. How can you, what, you can't see? Is that why you see things, because your eyes closed? You can see a lot of things. Well, I'm in this room. I can see what I want if I'm just making up things. But if I open my eyes, guess who I see out there? Black people. I can imagine you somebody else, you Martians, Venusians. You know, I can do anything. That doesn't mean it corresponds to reality. All thought ain't deep. And all conclusions ain't convincing.
Go and tell it. Break it down.
Then how should we educate our children? In Africa, the education is on 4 fundamental levels. It is to provide the student first with knowledge of the world. Second, with knowledge of ourselves in the world. Third, with knowledge of how to effectively engage the world. And fifth, with knowledge of how to direct our lives toward good and expansive ends. Let's take each one of those in turn. When we first start out, we must know the world. You see, You can't say self-knowledge in the abstract. And this is one of my great struggles with nationalists. And again, I always have to remind you, I'm a nationalist. But the nationalists be saying, self-knowledge. But you can't just have self-knowledge. You see, you've got to have self-knowledge in the world. They want self-knowledge hanging up there. And the first thing that the African teaches is not self, but the world. To teach you that you're a world being, that you're part of the environment in which you find yourself. And you must find your special identity in the world, not find the world after you find yourself. Because then you put more emphasis on yourself than the world. Isn't that the problem with the white man? He'll kill the world for itself. Polluting water, plundering, depleting resources. He's not at peace in the world or with the world. So the first thing, and it's a natural progression, the first thing a child does, it's just like if you got a child 3 years old or 2 years, and you start saying, let me teach you self-knowledge. No, the child starts walking around what? Trying to examine the world. Is that real or what?
That's it.
And the child begins to learn who she is, who he is, by how he fits in the world. You see, that's one of the problems with some of the school system. Trying to teach the children, making the education student-focused rather than world-focused, so that the student fits in the world rather than trying to trump the world with his own identity or her own identity. I don't know if y'all follow me yet. Look at it now. You see, we've got to teach black people to be world historical people. Malcolm said we must always ask ourselves, where do we fit in the scheme of things? That's the first thing you have to ask yourself. I will find my relationship. I will find my identity by my relationship with you. Do you know that? I can't just have an identity by myself.
That's right.
And Beatty says, I am because we are, and because we are, I am. What I would like to suggest is that even more clear is I am related and relate, therefore I am. Listen to this. Listen, I get my identity from my relationship. I am in the world, with the world. I'm a world being. Animals are world beings. Fish are world beings. Trees are world beings. I'm part of that. See, we always want to talk about we natural and we like the environment, but hey, it's time to talk about it. It's time to actually talk about it. What the European has done is rooted us out of the world, put us in a ghetto, gave us a ghetto identity, and from that created a ghetto purpose and a ghetto direction. Singing and dancing to please an indifferent world, savaging oneself, and praising the white man even when they don't say it or don't know they're doing it. Now, I'm back to knowing in the world. I don't want to spend too long on this because I want to give you a little bit on reparation, but I need to tell you this. The first teaching you must teach your child is about the world and where the child fits in the world. Well, the adult must know that too. Is anybody here at this late date don't know you black? That's not your problem. That's why you always ask, if everybody know they're black, why they keep acting white? Because we're concentrating on an identity in the world before without the world, before concentrating on where we fit in the world, and that would give us. We couldn't even think of ourselves as African until we got out of ourselves as Negroes. We had to go in a larger world to find our larger identity. Do y'all see that? It's by going beyond our petty personal selves that we have expanded selves. And so what you have is a need for teaching knowledge first of the world. The Hosea says, study the nature and function of the earth. Study the nature and function of the heavens. Why do we do that? Because we need to know where we fit in the scheme of things. That gives you a whole different kind of attitude of who you are. A world historical being, as opposed to a never gonna ever do anything Negro at large. Second, knowledge of ourselves in the world, okay? So after we study the world, we study ourselves in the world. And I've linked it and overlapped it because that's what you have to do. I am related and in and relate. Therefore I am. I'm related to Timoyo. I relate to her. I get my identity as husband, companion, in all things good and pure. You see? If I brutalize her, I get that identity too. In relationship. You're always who you are in relationship. And suppose you cut off your fundamental relationship with the world, and you can only identify with your street or the gang on your street. You're locked. You're deformed in your growth. You're limited in your capacity to grow. Again, Malcolm said we must ask ourselves where we fit in the scheme of things. And Garvey asks us to see ourselves as world historical beings. And Bethune said we are as the custodians of a great legacy. We must be proud of our contribution to world civilization. But suppose you don't see yourself as a world being, as a being in the world and of the world, at peace in the world and with the world, then you will become a warmonger with your oppressor. We must, in this whole thing of knowing ourselves in the world, we also can form coalitions if we know who we are in the world. We form linkages of our people with other people in the struggle. Not only Palestinians, but the Native Americans in Chiapas. People around the world who are struggling to expand the realm of freedom and justice in the world. Third is knowledge. We teach knowledge of how to effectively engage the world through service, employment, enterprise, whether it's political, economic, or cultural enterprise. A lot of times people say, well, we really need education so we can get a job. Well, I got that in there, but that's hung in with the rest of the things we got to do. To engage the world effectively is not simply employment. It can also be service. It can also be enterprise, initiative in the political, economic, and cultural realms. So, yes, the education must make you able to make a living, but more important, as Du Bois said, it must also make you capable of making a rich and resourceful life. How do you make that? And finally, education teaches us how to direct ourselves, our life, toward good and expansive ends. If education doesn't give you a moral vision of yourself and how you ought to live in your community and the world, it's a bankrupt education. An education that just teaches you how to get a job is nothing but, it's cultivating nothing but vulgar careerism. It must teach you the importance of speaking truth and doing justice, caring for the vulnerable around you, honoring your elders and your ancestors, your parents, of teaching you how to, in fact, cherish and challenge your children, how to relate rightfully with the environment, and how to struggle constantly against evil and always raise up and praise the good. The third issue is reparation. Certainly the movement for reparations is one of the most important initiatives of our time. Its importance is rooted in its relevance as a movement to achieve three basic things. First, justice for our people. Second, accountability for the country. And third, an ethical model for the world. First, a movement for justice for the people. We have been done a great injury. Can anybody doubt that? And we need justice. Second, accountability for the country. Certainly, we must hold the perpetrator of one of the greatest holocausts in human history. We must hold them accountable. And third, the reparations movement is not only a movement for justice for the people and accountability for the country, but it is also an ethical model for the world. And it is an ethical model first on how those who are injured in gross and grievous ways should be treated. See, if we let the white man just do anything to us and do not respond and struggle to not forget and not forgive, but to in fact forge a new future out of our struggle against oppression, then we have dishonored the dead. Brought questions about the living and also have put in doubt the future generations to come. This struggle is about freedom. This struggle is about not forgetting. This struggle is about honoring those who gave their lives so that we could live full and more meaningful ones. And so we must, in fact, put forth this ethical model of how people must demand justice and how people must be held accountable. But even more important than that, when we talk about an ethical model, we want to talk about how we struggle ourselves. You see, this is what people sometimes don't realize. The reparations movement is really not about what we get from white people.
Right, that's right.
It is about what we become as a result of our struggle to heal ourselves by struggling against the people who damaged us. Let me tell you this. This is from Fanon and Malcolm. Our position in us organization, Kawida, you can never kill yourself except by struggling against the conditions that damaged you. I'll give you an example. If a woman is being beat up at home or abused at home, I'm sorry to use this example. The only way she can ever gain her sense of dignity is to struggle against that abuse. Not by sitting down and accepting it, but by confronting it on the spot and making the decision that it will end today. That means more than all the books you can read on this subject. Malcolm said it, if you want your manhood back, you must struggle against the people who would deny you that.
Right.
If you want your womanhood back, you must struggle against the people who would deny you womanhood and turn you into some sexual thing that the world can think of consuming and like a squeezed orange, throw in the wastebasket afterwards. There can be no healing except through struggle against the damaging and deforming conditions of oppression. So that the reparation movement is not a serious movement unless it is part and parcel of our overall struggle for liberation and a high level of human life.
Right.
The reparation struggle is important because what it would teach us about ourselves, whether we'll sell our dignity for dollars or even the hope of a dollar. Or whether we will struggle to raise monuments above the earth that reflect our capacity for human history and progress, and that reflects our commitment to not let those who died die in vain. That's what it's about. It ain't about no check. See, that's the lotto you looking for. There are four main issues in reparations. First, the definition of the injury. Second, the responsibility for the injury. Third, the remedies for the injury. And fourth, the means of pursuing and achieving reparations from the injury itself. Well, let's take each in turn. I'll spend more time on remedies. But the definition of the injury, you know, even though we say that the white man did something to us, a lot of times we're not clear what he did. That's part of the injury. A long list of things. We really got a long list against our oppressor. I mean, like people talk about stolen labor, stolen land, brutality, but all of that, I want you to know, all of that pales besides and is subordinate to the central injury of Holocaust. No matter what other case you make, and no matter how many cases they take to court against insurance companies or against employers, don't you ever forget, this is not an economic question. No. It's a moral question. You put that on the table first, then you add the rest of that to it. So if we're talking about ill-gotten gains, if we're talking about prejudice and segregation and half-price employment afterwards, ghettoization, deculturalization, all of that is rooted in and stems from the Holocaust of enslavement. Even the position where you get less paid from the white, less paid than the white man for doing the same job. Your housing problems, your educational problem, your problem of identity in the world comes from what he did to us during the Holocaust of enslavement. People, oh, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Well, nobody tells the Jews that, you know. Somebody say, well, you know what? Let me tell you this. Y'all, some of the richest y'all more rich than all the Africans in the world. Well, let me tell you something for that. The Jews in America are the richest Jews in the world. Nobody said that solves the problem of their Holocaust. That's two different issues. Any riches we got against obstacles. Not because America gave them to us, but because we took them in spite of oppression. That's racist in itself, to imagine that white people are responsible for any wealth we have. Please. The injury is Holocaust. And you have to keep in that, because if you don't keep on that, they'll turn it into a commercial argument rather than a moral one. Yeah. And what you will have is slave trade. That is a commercial venture with unfortunate collateral damage. The killing of millions of people can be dismissed as collateral damage because we call Holocaust slave trade. That's right. The most morally meaningful term for genocide in our century is Holocaust. And a Holocaust, by definition, is a morally monstrous act of genocide that is not only against the people themselves, but also against humanity. It expresses itself in three basic ways: the morally monstrous destruction of human life, the morally monstrous destruction of human culture, and the morally monstrous destruction of human possibility. The destruction of human life ranges from 10 to 100 million people. The destruction of human culture means the destruction of cities, towns, villages, great works of art, great works of literature, books, libraries, and the people who made them. And the destruction of human possibility means lifting us out of our own history, making us a footnote and forgotten casualty in the white man's history, and poisoning our relationship with people around the world by teaching them to hate us and to devalue us and to fear us when they encounter us. Do you know what that means, to walk in the world already with predispositions against you? That's why the white man is always on edge. When he go now, he can't go around the world like he used to do. See? He don't know what's going to happen.
No.
Look how many years we walked in fear. And how many years we walk in fear even now when we see a police car.
Now.
And think about the fear he is sowing in Palestine, dropping bombs every night, selective and constant assassination of leadership, dropping personnel bombs, demolishing houses collectively. And look at what he did to the Native American. Just killed until he got tired and pushed to rest on barren land called reservations. That destroys human possibility. Do you understand that? I always asked you, suppose we could have lived in peace in the world, developed according to our own pace and understanding, what kind of new exchanges we would have had in the world? What new sciences would have been developed? What new understandings of the universe and the ocean could we achieved if we left free and developing along the lines we were? How much more advanced would humanity be?
That's right. That's right.
I charge the white man with genocide,
Yes.
with Holocaust,
Yes.
with mass murder.
Yes.
The list is long. Write it out and put it out there.
Now.
Do it in a systematic way. Don't let the lawyers just go in there and win you a couple of doo-doo dollars and end the conversation. They'll easily do that so they can stop the dialogue.
There you go.
That's why we need a reparations movement. We don't need people prematurely calling rallies. We need, in fact, a movement. And that movement has to pay respect to N'Cobra.
That's right.
We
That's
might develop a larger coalition than N'Cobra, but we must respect the work that N'Cobra has done. That's real, y'all. And you can help that be if you talk out, if you stand up. And don't stand. See, a lot of times we done got in the movement, we got scared. We don't defend nobody but ourselves, and that's too late. See? You let the people, everybody in the world call agents, talk bad, character assassinate people, and then when it comes to you, you don't have no defense.
That's what happened.
Because you haven't built up a principle of non-character assassination. You see? You don't defend leadership. You don't defend good enough. When I say you, I mean one doesn't.
Yeah.
What does that mean, one? No, we all have to take responsibility. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yes.
So let's define the injury correctly as Holocaust. Who's responsible for the injury? White men say y'all are.
Oh, sick.
Don't blame it on me. Y'all did it. Y'all sold each other. Sitting right here. Look at y'all. In fact, he got black people, some black people, going over there asking the African to confess. The continental African. In fact, a priest told me the other day, and I had to tell him it was a bad time for me to tell him because something else was going on, but I told him. I had to do it. I think that's why a lot of times people get mad with me because I speak the truth. But he was saying he was very impressed because a Catholic priest from Africa had stood up in the National Black Conference of Catholic Bishops and had apologized. I'm sorry to tell people, had apologized for any role his ancestors played in enslaving us. You know what's wrong with that picture? We are the Africans. So what's the African apologizing to another African? It's the white man that's the primary perpetrator. Let me tell you this, what they have done, and listen to this. This is what's so cool about it. The European has collapsed 3 categories of people: perpetrator, collaborator, and victim. In the Holocaust, there are 3 categories of people: perpetrator, collaborators, and victims. Guess who the perpetrator is? Yeah. The white man. Yes, Malcolm said the white man. And Malcolm said, I know some of y'all out there when I say that, think some of them are your friend. He said, but time will tell. See? If you got some friends or lovers, you know, hey, keep that out of the discussion right now. Who came and kidnapped and killed and made war and burned cities and towns and destroyed great works of art, of literature? Who did that? I'm sorry. Now, in every culture, there are always collaborators. There are collaborators among the Native Americans, among the Palestinians, among everybody. You can, and certainly among the Jews. Why do you think the Jews never talk about their collaborators? The people who were generals in the Nazi army, the Jews who were or army officers rather, in the Nazi army. Why do you think they don't talk about them? Why do you think they don't talk about the capos in the camp that bargained for each other's son's life? Why do you think they don't talk about the snitches on the corner that identified secular Jews that had no contact with the religious Jewish community? Why do you think they don't talk about that? Because they make a distinction between what? Perpetrator and collaborator. It's no problem for me to say some continental Africans and some Africans, period, collaborated. There's collaborators in every society. There was white men out there selling Native Americans guns, and they just found some Jews selling Palestinians guns. That was good of them. We could get their names. Put them on a plaque in the portrait theater. We must, in fact, I'm almost finished. We must, in fact, be clear about this. Then there was the victims. There's the perpetrator, the white man. There's a few Africans that got involved with the white man on his project. And then there were the millions and millions and tens of millions of Africans who died and who were forcibly brought into the diaspora. Those victims should not be charged with collaborating in their own oppression. That is morally repugnant. And whenever any white man or Negro at large, ambassador without portfolio, stands up to defend his or her master, you should tell him that is morally repulsive. And if you really believe that, then tell me about Jewish collaboration. Now. See, that cuts all conversations. Yeah. I told Henry Gates that. That's right. At a public lecture at L.A. when he came with that little book called The Wonders of Africa. I told Gates, and the mainly was Jewish audience, me and Tim Moyo, a couple of other blacks in the audience, but it was mainly a white audience, Jewish and Gentile, mainly Jewish. And I said, you know, that's morally repugnant. You would not say that about Jews, even though they did collaborate. You make a distinction between collaborator and perpetrator and victim. You can't belittle and degrade the memory of those who died as victims. He said, Maulana, I didn't intend to do that. Would you tell the nationalist community I didn't mean that? I said, I will, Brother Gates, but you yourself must say it also.
Right.
See, the European put that little Wonders of Africa to actually challenge the nationalist movement, especially the Afrocentric movement. All the subjects they chose were chosen to counteract our arguments. The way they left Egypt out, the way they belittled Nubia and didn't know anything about it. First of all, that had something to do with intellectual incapacity also, but you know. The way they try to bring up the Swahili language. Why that one? Why not the Yoruba language or the Zulu language? They knew we had established that as early as the 60s. Us organizations had put forth Swahili as the major Pan-African language, and that was the language of Africans in this country. All right? They know that, so they chose that, okay? The whole question of enslavement, trying to get Africans on the continent to say, I'm guilty. Guilty of what? You don't even know what happened. A continental African better not come to me and apologize. That's apologizing for the white man. You still collaborating. That's modern collaboration. You need to be adding your voice to the criticism and the accusation against the white man.
Right.
Not trying to give him an out. Now, remedies for the injury. I want to end with that because I think it's important for us to understand the full force of what reparations is about. I'm going to leave the means of pursuing and achieving the reparations. That has to do with structure, and it takes a long time. But the most important thing is I'm going to skip and say we need a movement. We need a coalition. And at the core of organizing that coalition must be in Cobra people. That's my position. No one has done more or equal work to pursue the reparations question than in Cobra. And I stand here not only as a chair of the organization, us in NACO, but also as a member of NCOBRA. That's how strong we feel about it. Right. We're part of that coalition. We could go off and let's have another group. We're not going to do that. And we believe that we have come to a point where this gives us an excellent opportunity to unite around a common aim. Now, there are 6 things, real quick, that I think are important in terms of reparation process. And reparation is a process. It's repairing and reconstructing the community through struggle. Y'all see it? Repairing and reconstructing the community through struggle. Now, the first requirement for reparation is a public dialogue, a public discussion around the issues I just raised. The definition of the injury, the responsibility for the injury, the remedies for the injury, and the means of pursuing and achieving reparations for the injury. Okay? A public dialogue also to stop white people from their acute denial of what they have done to us. They need therapy. The public dialogue becomes a therapeutic process in which they can confess, concede, tell the truth for once. Yes, I did it. And if they don't want to take it personal, yes, this country did it. You see? Now, this is very important because the second thing is public admission. Who will admit it? I don't expect each white person to do it, although they must agree with what I'm getting ready to propose. The state must do it.
That's right.
The state must admit Holocaust. They can't admit slavery. They cannot admit slave trade. They must admit Holocaust. Slavery and slave trade are minor injuries compared to Holocaust. That is why Jews want to monopolize the word Holocaust as if it's Hebrew and something white people have and black people can't have. The Jewish word for Holocaust is Shoah. The Swahili word is maangamizi. I know some people use maafa, but that's not exactly strong enough because it does not deal with intentionality. Maafa could be an accident on the highway, but maangamizi means great intentional destruction. That's what this was. And we want to get intentionality because you know in any criminal case, motive is key. Wantonly planning with malice and forethought. You know the words. Even if you haven't heard them, your relatives had. It's very important that they admit Holocaust, because otherwise you're always going to have a junior brother status in moral discussion. And only white people, and you know white people are strange. They want to be the conquerors of the world and the greatest victims of the world. Ain't that something? They don't even want you to be the best victim. Or the worst victim. White people, I always say, white people have Holocaust. Black people have problems. You got problems, that's all you got. So we need public admission by the state, and the state has to do it. Guess why? Because the state sanctioned it with law and gun. It's in the Constitution. It's in federal statutes. You remember even George Washington pushed what he called a fugitive slave law, the first one. So the state sanctioned it. And as representative of the people, it must admit and compensate. Now, what your white man says is, look, you know what? We can't pay. We can't say that. You know why? Because the people don't exist anymore. And the people that did that don't exist anymore. But the state does. The government changed it, but the state is perpetual. And the people die and are born, but the people are perpetual. Hey. So I'm here. You are here. The people are here. But people didn't disappear. The injury was not done simply to individuals. It was done to the people. And when they categorize you in the Constitution, it wasn't as a person. Who in the world sit here and talk to me about personal reference to the Negro? No, it was collective. You know it and I know it. Don't let the white man whip that. That's 3-card Molly. That's the Brooklyn Bridge. That's Shrek. He never wanted to see us as a person. All his laws, all his actions, all his conversation is to reduce us to one thing, a collective and a collective identity called in. You're all ins, he said. All of you. You have no name. In fact, I'm going to give you my name. You're no longer Kunta Kinte, you're Toby, Negro. George Washington Jenkins Toby. Rufus and John and Stephanie and Monique and Sammy. Look at you. You see what I mean? We have to face that. He don't even want us to have our own personal name. He gave us his name, constantly denying us our human dignity as both persons and a people. And so we have to struggle against that, and we have to realize the state must apologize to us as a people. You know, I don't want George Bush or his successor come and write me a letter. No. Say it to the people. Say it to the world. Say it to African people. What fool would think he needs a personal letter? We have to think collective, black people. Third thing we need then is apology. Public apology. First you have public dialogue, public admission, then public apology. Fourth, public recognition. By that I mean the raising of monuments and the teaching in the media and in the school system, the university and public school system, the meaning and horror of the Holocaust, not only to us as a people, but to this country and the world. The other white people got their Holocaust in the schools. They got a monument and they didn't even die here. The first monument, as you always know I say, the first monument to Holocaust in this country should have been the Native Americans.
That's right.
And it's a testament to the deep and enduring racist character of this country that they would raise monuments to white people killed in Europe and not one monument to the millions and millions and tens of millions they killed of Native Americans. More than 6 million, 100 million. And in this country alone, at least 15 million. Think about it. So we need monuments, and we need media and educational space to teach the horror and meaning of our Holocaust, not only to us as a people, but to this country and the world. Fourth thing, this is what everybody jumps to. They skip public dialogue, public admission, public apology, and public recognition. They get right down to compensation. Where's my check? You owe us. Well, wait a minute. Can we have another discussion? And that shows the consumerist character of the society, that our dignity is not discussed. That's not the first item on the agenda. Our check is. Isn't that cold? The first item on the agenda has to be Holocaust, the discussion of the destruction of our people and our culture and the interruption of our history. We have to talk that first. We can't even ask for the right amount. The amount can't be done by ill-gotten gains in labor. Oh, that we can get that later. You ever notice how the Jews now, they are raising the question about slave labor. But the first thing they did was raise the question about mass murder. They made it a moral issue, even though some of them, as you see, were enslaved in those plants. Why didn't they bring that up first? Why are they suing the insurance companies last and the industrial companies last? Because the issue was not money. The issue was Holocaust for them.
Yes.
Even though they're going to get the money, you know that. But it shows how a poor people that all their lives have dreamed of being materially comfortable, of having the means just to sit down and just rest a minute. Many of them are being taught to think of this as an economic or financial way out. It's not. I told the people we had a rally with Minister Farrakhan and a lot of other brothers and sisters that were at, and Ajua Ayatoro and Watella Graham and Kibibi and who else spoke? Charles Overtree and Ron Daniel. We had this massive rally. It was beautiful. The Friday night before the rally in the park in D.C. And I was telling people how one sister, a colleague of mine, a college professor at that, she said, Maulana, I like all you said. That's so beautiful how you explain it. She said, but can I just get my check too? Well, look, you can get your check too, but before we talk about the check, let's look at the damage. People impatient. I told you it's the lotto thing. Now we got a choice now. We got a choice. There's a big thing coming up. We got a choice. Are we going to save and take 10 years to get the money, or are we going to risk it all today to get the big money? And for poor people and people who've been deprived and people who've been exploited, they want it now. Guess what? You ain't going to get it now. Let me tell you, and I would talk more on this, but I don't want the white man to think he gonna just get away. We're gonna get something. You understand? It might not even be money. It might be something else. It could be land. It could be free health care. I prefer free education from the beginning to college. But we've got to struggle. We haven't made a case yet. People don't understand that. Black people have not made a structure. Oh, I didn't know it was that. Black people haven't made a structure. Let me get on down. So compensation could have many forms: money, land, health care, etc. The last and free education. The last thing is preventive measures. And I'm ending right here. I know I can't go any further. The last is preventive measures: public dialogue, public admission, public apology, public recognition, compensation, and finally, preventive measures. And there is no preventive measure that does not involve struggle and that does not culminate in creating a just and good society and a good and sustainable world. Therefore, I repeat, as I said before, the struggle is not about money. The struggle is the struggle for reparation is part and parcel of our struggle for liberation and ever higher levels of human life. And reparations will end not in what the white man gives us, but what we gain for ourselves through the struggle to create a just and good society and a good and sustainable world. Thank you.
Is Maulana means the master teacher. Yes. Is he the master teacher? And his middle name is Maulana. How you pronounce the middle name?
Ndabezita.
Ndabezita means constant concern to the enemy.
That's right.
You can see why. And Karenga is keeper of the culture. That was very, very informative. Very informative. We're going to take some questions, but first we have to take some compensation here to help us continue our work. We have 3 organizations bringing you Dr. Karenga Night: us, NACO, and African Poetry Theater. And we're all independent Black organizations and institutions. So we need your support. We're going to pass the basket around. We hope you would give generously and make sure your donation is very quiet but loud. Okay? So, one of the things that we have to start doing as Black people is really supporting our organizations. That's right. I was reading to my students today the ideas that Adam Clayton Powell put forth about Black people in their organizations. And he said we have to begin to support and sustain our organizations and institutions. Otherwise, they'll be used against us. Okay, and that was one of the struggles of the 60s around who was leading Black organizations, financially and theoretically, okay, in terms of philosophy. So we need to, we want you to give so that we can continue to work here at the theater. The theater had a very unfortunate incident here a few months ago. There was a fire. You can't see it because they've taken care of business. But they need money to rebuild, to buy the institution or buy another institution building so that they can continue the work that they do here. So again, thank you for your generous donations. We're going to take a few questions. People that came in late, also we have some forms for the new relaunching of Harambe Notes, the communication organ of the US organization. And we would hope that you subscribe and get others to subscribe so that we can get Dr. Karenga, us, NACO's message out to you on a regular basis. We want to start out as a quarterly and eventually build to a monthly and who knows, weekly, maybe a daily. If we support it, we can do it. As a former editor of Black News that was on the scene for a couple of decades and a member of the East, I know what black people can do if they work together and commit themselves. I've seen it. You can do wonders, black people. Okay, you can do wonders. And I've seen us turn around students, education system at Uhuru Sasa when black people work together. If we just work together, it's nothing we can't do. It's nothing. So we're going to open the floor for questions. We need you to come to the mic here, and we'll stay. I'm sure Dr. Karenga will stay as long as you want to.
I want to take this opportunity to recognize a brother in the house that's a strong soldier and representative of Minister Louis Farrakhan, a brother of Minister Akbar Muhammad. Would you stand? Send warm greetings to the minister, brother. Warm greetings to the minister. Okay, who would like to start the first question? Okay, yes, sir, Bakati. Bakati.
Greetings, Maulana. Could you give us a little more on this push by Bush to go into Iraqi? And the only thing that seems to be holding them back is there seems to be a split in the ruling class.
That's right.
Over why he hasn't moved ahead. So I mean, what's your take on it, and what do you think ultimately is going to happen?
Yeah, well, appreciating what you've said, if I understand correctly. Bush is trying to follow up where his father failed. His father wreaked havoc on Iraq. And they did it not simply because they thought that and feared that Saddam Hussein would no longer listen to them, because one time, they praised him as an ally, okay? But when he wanted to show independence and go his own way, then they decided they would crush him and teach him as a lesson. He also made a mistake by invading Kuwait. Then he loses moral status, and then they pounce on him, okay? They use that excuse to pounce on him because they always feared Iraq as a challenge to Israel. The white man is always concerned about keeping Israel as imperialist outpost in the Middle East. A lot of times black people go through like fads. We used to talk about white supremacy all the time. People just start their speech with white supremacy. But you can't forget that. Whites want to continue to dominate. And they have more common cause with their Jewish brothers and sisters than they do with Arabs, no matter how loyal and obsequious Saudi Arabia is. It will never be a substitute for Israel. And so the first thing they had to do was to knock out, they first destroyed Lebanon as a banking center. Okay? I mean, you have to go all the way back to the history of this. And then second, they destroyed Iraq, which was the most advanced technologically country in the Middle East and was the strongest challenge to Israel. They bombed it mercilessly and had killed 2 million people, mostly children and elderly people, by denying medical treatment as well as ruthless saturation bombing. Okay? They have a personal vendetta, but it is larger a geopolitical need to suppress not only Iraq, but any challenge to its dominance in the region. It also could benefit from monopolizing the oil. Iraq has played an independent role in making deals with Russia for a long time, and the Soviet Union, before the Soviet Union collapsed, still has deals with that, and with the rest of Europe as opposed from the United States, and the United States would like to monopolize that. If they can replace Hussein and put another regime in there, they can control that oil also, and they will have another outpost, an obsequious outpost, and you know that's what it has to be, that they need in order to control the Muslims of the area and the Arabs. Now, a lot of times people don't like to bring this up, but I bring it up, and I'm not in the camp with Huntington and all those other races. But I do believe that the United States and Europe, but more so the United States, is fighting an old battle with Islam. Islam, as I told you, and I speak this way not being a Muslim, okay? Islam is the only power, world power, capable of challenging European globalization, domination of the world. There is no global alternative to the white man except Islam. Rescue me if I'm wrong. I got time. We got time to talk this out.
What about China?
Oh, listen, China doesn't have a global reach. And China has been seduced by the promise of capitalism. It's not even, I mean, I was glad Timoy and I went in 77. It was changing for the worse. It's over. All the social experiments, that's dead. You have rich, you got a gap, a class gap growing in China. You got prostitution and crime in China the way you never had it. Same thing's happening to Cuba, by the way. Oh, yes, that's sad. I mean, the whole world is changing. And one of the most important things you have to realize, this also relates to the Palestinian struggle. The most revolutionary force in the Middle East is a Palestinian. And that is why the white man spends so much time trying to turn freedom fighters into terrorists and guerrillas into gunmen. You don't have any more guerrilla wars. You ever notice that? No more wars of liberation. Even though Israel brutally occupies the Palestinian people and kills them mercilessly and regularly, nobody of any stature speaks out against that in the country. The civil rights leaders are quiet. Mr. Farrakhan, as you know, speaks out. We speak out. But, you know, we don't have the same voice and the same, venues that the other people have. And you certainly, they don't want us to talk on television. I remember right after the September 11th, BET called me. I don't know if they knew who I was, you see. Because, you know, they be doing things, they don't check with each other. So, so what's that little sister's name? Jackie Reed. So Jackie Reed, I like her though, she's nice. But anyhow, she wasn't up to it. So anyhow, what happened? She asked me, I'm gonna tell you what, she asked me, she said, Dr. Karenga, now the president is calling for us all to stand behind him in his war in Afghanistan. Don't you think black people should stand behind our president? I said, no.
Right off.
She said, well, don't you think that's patriotism? I said, why should these people hijack the concept of patriotism? Patriotism is not just waving a flag. It's not making war against innocent people. What have the Afghans done to us? I can't participate with somebody who's committing a crime. That would make me a crime partner. I said, this man just a few weeks ago, we were calling him a vote stealer, an election stealer.
Yeah.
She said, okay, thank you, Dr. Karenga. I wanted to get loose. And really, Tim Moyer can tell you, we did it because BET doesn't have a station in Los Angeles. We did it, I think, at ABC. And the reporters stopped their news thing. They were looking at me, had I gone, because everybody was supposed to be locked into this goose step of following this mad cowboy, this empty-minded, slow-thinking person. And I'm against, and see, they're using this war, as y'all know, to suppress Islam in this country, but also to suppress black people and other progressive forces in the country. Ashcroft is Mad Max. Rumsfeld is the Grim Reaper. Cheney is an old diehard. And Bush is a cowboy. That's the quartet ruling this country. And look at what they're doing with this Patriot Act. They can tape you, tap you anytime, hold you without trial, hold you incommunicado. Don't even let your lawyer see you. They couldn't have prayed for this and got it. They couldn't have wished for a better situation, but maybe they did. After all, why did Bush declare this bombing of the Trade Center and not the first one a criminal act? This is the first time in history a person has been declared war on. First time anybody ever declared, a country declared war on a person. And then didn't go after the person, attacked another country that wasn't even involved. This is a concocted project. And it's so the right wing can rule and change the laws and create a police-like state. And the progressive forces, which often come from the white progressive forces, which often come from the Jewish community, are basically silent. Guess why? They're trying to protect Israel. Because everybody knows that the United States, people say Bin Laden and the other people hate the United States because it supports Israel. No, they don't hate the United States because it supports Israel. It hates the United States because it supports Israel's mass murder and occupation of Palestine. You see, you always got to add that to it. Just hating Israel look like you're just against Jews. No, we're against the occupation. We're against the mass murder of children, old people, men, the intellectuals, trying to destroy a whole nation. We're against physical and cultural genocide that's being practiced against Palestine and Palestinian people. So always say that. Don't say that they're against United States because it supports Israel. They're against it because they support the occupation of Palestine, because they support Israel's occupation of Palestine, arm them and finance them to the T. And so yeah, that's what it's a long thing. I didn't finish telling you about this struggle, this side struggle that's going on. The United States would like to, in fact, reduce Islam to simply prayers and to simply conceding what they want done in their own region. And they see it, as I just told you, as a world civilization that will clash with them. And they want to make it as weak as possible. And they do it several ways, by knocking out any potential powers and by converting the rest of the people. Look at the shameless Arabs and Muslims doing a quilt and keep confessing, we're sorry. Did the white man say he's sorry for Timothy McVeigh? Did the white man say he's sorry for bombing Palestine and Afghanistan?
All right.
You don't have to get up and say you sorry for something you ain't done.
That's right.
Why they making all the Muslims feel guilty? The Christians ought to be guilty for Hitler. The Christians ought to be guilty for enslavement. The Christians ought to be guilty for genocide against the Native Americans. Christians ought to be guilty for bringing most of the problems in the world.
Keep going. Keep going.
See, and I should tell the black Christians in the audience, I ain't talking about you. You ain't got no power. But they'll make you confess. And the Orthodox Muslims, a lot of them just be confessing because they're arresting them and they're torturing them. You know that, don't you? It's a brutal thing going on. I'm gonna write an article soon on, I think that black people, more than any other people in the world, or best suited and situated to be a voice for Palestine in this country. Because being a voice for Palestine is being a voice for justice in the world.
All right.
We have to see, as King said, justice anywhere is justice, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And we are the only people morally situated enough with a history that nobody can challenge or question. We're the only ones who can do that. We're the best ones to do that, I should say. And we are actually dishonoring our social justice tradition by not standing up for Palestine.
That's right.
We must, in fact, speak out for that. So I'm gonna write an article. I've been waiting. I wanted to write it early, but I got invited some other things I didn't get a chance to. But I should go into the next question. Yes. I'm sorry to take that long. This is yours.
I got a question concerning the mental, emotional, and spiritual reparations that our people need.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, it's hard enough to try to repair, the damage that's been done after centuries and, generations of what happened to us, those of us who are conscious, all right, quote unquote. I'm referring, let's say, for instance, to the type of people that's in this room,
Yes.
who go out of their way to seek the knowledge of themselves and, their environment. How do you reach those who are not open to it, those of us who are not conscious, so to speak? How do you reach them? How do you even begin to try to repair the type, the damage that's been done to them?
Right. Appreciate what you said, if I understand correctly. I really don't want you to see black people as pathological. I see them as having normal human problems aggravated by conditions of oppression. You have to see it like that. Otherwise, you just give up. And second, don't forget, when you talk about them, you're talking about yourself. Now, let me tell you something. Again, I need to say this. I'm a nationalist. What I'm going to say doesn't mean I don't like nationalism. But if you're going to help the community, the nationalists first got to help themselves. Have you seen anybody more individualistic than nationalists? Have you seen anybody that is less able to unite around a common cause than nationalists? Think about it now. Think about it. Why do you think we can't build a black united front? I always said, and I used to tell Brother Minister Khaled this, and I told Minister Louis Farrakhan this too. I always saw the nation as being a core group around which to build a national black united front for a lot of reasons. One, the longevity that it has. Next, the structure that it has. Okay? The respect that it has in the community. But at the same time, I don't see that being done. Now, there's a new conversation about that, and I hope the minister pursues it and the nation pursues it. But it's not. But one of the problems we had, even with the Million March Day of Absence, is getting national. We finally did get the nationalists to organize around something they all believe in. Let me ask you this. See, that's why I don't think we should concentrate on the people all at once. I think we should concentrate on ourselves and take to the people a model of what it means to be black in the world. Suppose we could bring to the people a model of unity and working together. If the black people, it's just like people say to me, we need a black sacred text. Okay, so you got the Hosea. I did the translation for the Odu Ifa. Okay, good. Now, how does that affect your life? Does it make you speak the truth and do justice and care for the vulnerable and honor your elders and your ancestors and cherish and challenge your children and have a rightful relationship with the environment, to struggle against evil and always raise up the good? What does it do to your life? How does it improve you? How many of y'all are actually, don't raise your hand, how many of y'all belong to an organization? And how many of y'all give to any group except a religious group? See, you don't have to raise your hand, but just think about it. See? How many people actually, and I'm not putting you down, so I need to always preface this. You know what I mean? But now, if I did the microscope and asked, what did you give here when Fagoon asked you to give something for this culture center? What would that say about you? Especially if you got some big money in your pocket. But you know what it would say about if you didn't have any in your pocket and you were right at the end, but you believed in Africa. You believed in blacks, in African Americans, and in the struggle we're waging to build a new way and world. That would say a lot if you sacrifice. One of the things I notice about nationalists too, they don't have a morality of sacrifice. What we need and what the Oduifa teaches us, that all good comes from sacrifice. Sacrifice of time, of heart and mind, of time, of effort, of material goods, and especially of one's whole self. Can we sacrifice, black people? How many of y'all belong to, don't raise your hand, how many of y'all belong to an organization and is working on any project that you can announce with pride? Or you the listeners, you the tape collectors. We got to ask these questions. You got all the right dress? You know all the names? You know what? I always tell you this, and I'm going to tell you this. And I went too long on this question, but let me ask you this. Do you remember when I always said to Sekou Touré said, if everybody agrees on the principles and need of the revolution, why do you think the revolution suffers so miserably? He said, because our principles and practice don't always coincide. And though we think revolutionary, we still move by old habits and ideas. So the masses are not the problem. It's the people who would lead them that are the problem. And they don't give enough model of possibility. It's just like when I first converted to nationalism. I'm living with my brother. I won't even take this to my mama. You know, I couldn't even take this to my mama because I'm not even sure all of it yet. And I certainly couldn't take it to my father because he was merciless. I mean, you couldn't just say stuff to him because he was an intellectual person. He's just sharp and he was, So I said, hey, So I tried out first on my brother. I'm black. First I said, I'm not eating no more hog. I'm influenced by the Muslims, so don't give me no more hog. Yeah. So my brother, he's intellectual too. So, he's sharp and I'm boxing with him. And it like helps me get my skills together. So he lays around and he still cooks his hog. And if I don't watch him, he might drop a little grease in mine. Yeah. So I'm mad. I told you don't do that.
But it's short.
But guess what? All he was doing was testing me. You know why? How many blacks have you seen who made a commitment and turned their backs on blackness? Look at all the people I started out with in the 60s. Where are they now? Where are they now? Few leftovers calling me names and stuff. But they ain't doing nothing. Where are these people who talk so bad to the white man? Where are they? Now they're telling me I'm too black. I'm stuck in the 60s. It's a good place to be stuck in. The 60s are my grounding, but I'm already in the future. I'm ahead of them. They just didn't notice it. That's why they keep looking back. I use the 60s as a foundation, like I use classical Egypt as a foundation. But I'm always framing a future. And you have to do that, black people. If I could just get just 100 black men from across the country to meet on a regular basis and talk about the problems of the world. We don't have one black think tank. And I raise this again and again and again. Why can't we do it, black people? You black conscious people, why can't we do it?